So you may have noticed that there's a little logo for our digital convening, which says always keep moving. And it's got a little logo of a plane. I'm going to share the story behind that logo because it's a story from my past. And while it started out being about business travel, it ended up being probably the best advice I ever got in my life. And it applies to relationships and career management and raising kids and just about everything else. So in 1995, I was in Atlanta Hartsfield Airport trying to get home to Boston. I was a consultant and I went out every Monday morning at 7 a.m. on a flight to Atlanta. And then I came back Thursday at 7 p.m. And a bunch of my colleagues did too, so I knew a bunch of people on the flight. So as we're getting ready to board, the gate agent said, "There's a light on in the cockpit. We're calling maintenance. We think the flight may be delayed about 20 minutes. And everyone groaned. And at that, my manager, the officer on my project, is a wonderful and wise woman named Barbara Herman, took me by the arm and said, "Come on, come with me. Let's go." We went up to the gate agent and collected our boarding passes, because back in 1995, they collected your boarding pass at the gate. And she said, come with me, let's go. And we started walking down the terminal. And I said, "Where are we going?" And she said, we're going home to Boston. So we're walking down the terminal and we're walking past all these gates where planes are boarding to places like Dallas and San Francisco and Phoenix and Chicago. And then she makes a beeline for this gate that said this flight is going to New York LaGuardia. And she runs up to the gate agent and says, "Will you take these tickets to Boston to get us on this flight?" And the gate agent said, "We will, but we're not going to take you to Boston. If we accept these tickets, you're just going to New York." And she said, "Great." She gives them our tickets and she pulls me on board. And I'm a little confused. We're walking down the jetway and I'm thinking, we're going to get to New York at 10 o'clock. I don't know how we're getting back to Boston. So I'm a little confused and I'm a little worried, and I'm also a little high strung, if you know me. So this is all kind of hitting me all at once. And I said, Barbara, what are we going to do? We're going to be stuck in New York. I got to get home." And she smiled and she very calmly said to me, "Peter, when you're trying to get somewhere, always keep moving in the general direction of your destination. The important thing for us is to get out of Atlanta, to go somewhere in the Northeast that's closer to Boston than Atlanta. And it doesn't really matter where we go. We could go to Providence or Hartford or Portland, Albany. The last 200 miles of the journey is the easiest part. We can take a cab, we can rent a car, we can take a train, we can take a bus. Depending on where we go, we could maybe even take a boat. Any of those ideas is better than staying in Atlanta, because that plane isn't going anywhere. There's no such thing as a 20-minute delay. You have to keep moving towards your goal. And it doesn't have to be in a straight line. We're going to zig and then we're going to zag. We'll get back on track later." And she was right, because that airplane never even left. That became a 4-hour delay, and eventually they canceled the flight, and all my friends went back the next day. You know, they say there are no straight lines in nature. And I think it's also true that the pathways to our goals are rarely straight lines. When you set a career goal or a goal with your kids, you rarely get there in a straight line. There are detours and pit stops and sometimes mountains to climb over. But we have to make sure they don't derail us. And we have to just make sure that we make course adjustments and get back on track towards our goal, which is a lot like RLC, because we had a goal of all being together and convening in Boston, like Bahia said, giving each other hugs and everything. And this pandemic sort of conspired to knock us all off track. But the goal was still to be together and to learn together. And so here we are. We're still doing that. We're just doing it in a different way. So with that, I'm going to turn the program over to a friend and mentor who's a great fan of YAI and who also focuses on keeping moving in the general direction of her destination. I know that. Sometimes she sends me little texts saying, I'm getting derailed, but I'm getting back on track. I'm going to keep on moving. And today, her destination was one way or another to be with all of us today. Dr. Bertice Berry, over to you.
Hi, Peter. Hi, everyone. I've been waiting, and I'm just hearing it again, I'm crying. I've been waiting all year to hear this story, and to share my story from that story with you all. Last year at the LC, everything had ended and we had all wrapped, and it was time to go. And Peter was sitting with Sir Foma, the rest of the facilitators, and he was going to talk to them and kind of run through everything, how it was. And he said, wait, Bertice, come back. I want you to hear this. And he shared that story. And last year, I shared how important story is for our own lives and for our own lessons. The beauty of story. I taught statistics. I'm a sociologist, and I love number crunching. But the beauty of story, as Muriel Rukeyser, the poet, said, the world is not connected by tiny atoms, it's connected by stories. When we share in story form, my story connects with your story, and I'm able to pull down from it what I need. Well, I've been waiting to share with Peter what has happened from that story and to share with you all what has happened from that story. And then it became an even bigger story. I heard that, and I was walking back to my room after hearing the story saying, yeah, but when I'm on a plane, I just get off. And immediately my mind kind of went into, how does it connect? What is it about? What is this story? And I said, nah, I can smell a cancellation. I get off the plane and okay, keep moving in the same direction. And I'm walking through the lobby, and the guy that was working in the lobby of the hotel said, how's it going? I said, well, I'm really tired, but I'm very, very happy. I just had a great time. And he said, as long as you keep moving. And I was like, what? And so everywhere I went, I kept hearing, just keep moving, just keep moving. But still, I knew that this story had another layer for me, that it was important, but I didn't know why. And so weeks later, I kept pondering the story. And then one night, in the middle of the night, one of my devices was still on and either in the bed or near the bed, and the red light was on. And I popped up out of my bed and I said, that's it. It was the red indicator light, the check engine light that came on. And for me, that was the main point of the story. I shared last year that I suffer from multiple sclerosis. And so with MS, I've had it. I was diagnosed 10 years ago, but I only told my family 3 years ago. And prior to that, I was really well. I was really fit. So I didn't want a lot of people to know what was going on. And I was trying to get back to wellness, but I had been trying to get back all of the usual ways, all of the ways that I'd done before. And so that check engine light was MS for me. And I had to get off the plane and I had to find another way to get back to wellness. And so at first, like any good sociologist, you operationalize anything and you try to graph it and you try to lay out a study of it. And I began to do that. And at first I started conceptualizing wellness as weight loss, but I knew that weight gain is very often the response to the illness. And so it wasn't about weight loss as much as it was about range of motion and energy. And I lived in constant pain. And I just wanted to get to where I needed to be. I wanted to get back home. And I couldn't get there. And so I created a little chart. I drew a graph. I put wellness in the top right corner. And I gave myself 6 months to get there. And I said, what do I need to do to get to that point? And so every day I would analyze what it was that I would need. And I'd say, how do I feel? What am I doing? And every day I monitored it. What did I eat that made me feel differently? What did I do? And it wasn't the typical things. It wasn't the way I had gotten there before. And I noticed that I would listen to the music in the morning, and I'd listen to the news in the morning first thing, and I'd listen to the news at night, and I felt drained. And so I said, stop listening to music, start playing music. Stop listening to the news, play the music instead. And the more I played the music, the more I was moving. And when I started moving, I had more energy to start exercising again. One Sunday, I showed up in church and this woman said, "You're here." And I said, "What do you mean I'm here?" And she said, "Every year this time you catch the flu or pneumonia." And it was true. I got the flu and pneumonia every year. But and MS affects different parts of the body for different people differently, and it affects my mobility, but it also affects my lungs. So one of the things that I introduced was a breathing treatment every day, a medicated breathing treatment every day. And she noticed before I did that I was still up, moving around and going. And I know the last 2 years when I had the flu and pneumonia, I really felt like I was going to die, and I had to be hospitalized, and it was pretty bad. And this year, I didn't get sick at all. And it was pretty shocking because we're in a pandemic and I didn't get sick. And then the check engine light came on again. And this time it was a little bit more than just me. And what's so interesting and what's so amazing is the more I was paying attention to my own self, I was able to pay attention to the world around me and what was happening in the world. But I kept moving. I just kept moving. And I was moving better. And I was feeling less pain. And I was having more energy throughout the day. And I was happier. And I was like, "You've got to be kidding. This thing works." But I don't want to tell anybody because it's Peter's story. And I want to wait until I share it with YAI first. But the check engine light came on. End of February, I heard from Surafoma, and they said that their flight had been canceled by the Wallace Foundation for March 4th. They had a flight on March 4th and it had been canceled into February. So I said, "Oh, okay. Something's going on." And I knew it was happening globally, and maybe they know a little bit more than I do, but I got to get somewhere else. And so now I'm no longer Peter, I'm Barbara. I'm the one taking people off the plane. And so I started ordering some essential items. About 3 or 4 weeks later, my family came running in the house. They're all like, "We can't find any toilet paper. We can't find any sanitizer. We can't." And I just felt like Barbara. I was like, "Baby, just get your stuff. Calm down. Go in my closet. In the back of the closet, you're going to find 2 big boxes. One on the left has your toilet paper. One on the right has the sanitizer. It has all the hand wipes. It has alcohol. It has wipes. It has everything you're going to need." They said, "How did you know? How did you know?" I said, "Well, the check engine light came on. And rather than sit there and wait and panic with everybody else, I knew to get off. I knew to start planning. I knew to start preparing." I've been hearing from some of you all throughout the country, and you all were preparing and doing and responding in ways that are just amazing. In the Tennessee Valley, you all never closed. But because of the work you did before and you're so well respected, you became the caregiver for all of the essential workers in your community. In Austin, you're doing digital art and teaching children what a rainbow sounds like. These are not even things that we would think to do or need to have prior to now. CJ is teaching fine arts online, and everybody in the world is becoming an artist as a result. In New York, you're doing virtual programming online, and even though your spaces have been shut where activity is concerned, you're using them to feed people. And in Atlanta, what you did in one space in the 4 corners with one group of young people, you're doing it across 3 groups. And not just there, you're looking at ways to go out in the world to the most vulnerable people on reservations and children who were shut in and locked in and away from school. You're expanding this. The first thing everybody realized they needed was art. They're going online to find ways to calm themselves and cheer themselves up and do something different. All of the art supplies are gone and everything is somewhere else. When the check engine light came on in my house, we started preparing. And before anybody announced that there was a shortage of PPE, we were making masks for hospitals and nursing homes and groups. And then people said, "Wait a minute, she's making masks. We've been in every newspaper. We've been on television shows all over the place. We have sent out over 5,000 masks all over the country and some outside of the country. My family has become what my bishop calls the hope factory, because every morning some of my friends were depressed and I would be on the phone with them, but I found that that was taking some energy from me. So I said, well, maybe there's a way to not interact with them so much, but to still give them the hope. So I started recording a 3 to 4 minute message and posting it every day. And the next thing I know, those things were going viral. And I looked up and 500,000 people were watching those videos. And so my work has expanded. Companies that I hadn't worked with in years had seen those videos and said, hey, can you come do something like that for us? And I'm like, are you kidding me? So the mask thing is one thing. The other thing is another thing. So I made my dress and my little matching mask, because I make masks to match my clothes. And this morning I realized that I left my dress upstairs because I had to do some alterations. So I went upstairs to get my dress, and before I realized it, I noticed I was running. And when I came back down the steps, I was using both legs. And my daughter looked at me and said, oh, look, Ma, you're a real boy. And we laughed and we cried. And I want you to know that the work you do is not just critical in your community, it's critical throughout this nation. Peter's story was a platform for me to operationalize, create a plan, create a way, a strategic way to get out of what I thought I wasn't going to ever get out of. Not only am I well, my community's well. My niece who works with me is a nurse who is also a Navy corpsman, who's a wounded warrior who struggles with PTSD, but she is the best fulfillment manager and shipping magnet in the country right now, sending out masks everywhere. This is a time that we can begin to determine who we're going to be for the future. Crisis is not the time to look for how to get out. It's the time to look for who you want to be. And I just want to thank you all for being a part of my life, because your presence has not only changed me, it has healed me. Thank you, thank you, thank you.